And then Thomas decided that he had to take a number 2. He had to go for a shit basically. And that's kind of like, this was now 12 hours in. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, honestly, guys, I can't do this anymore. So how did Markagram go for me this year? I figure it's time to do a recap of it before the documentary comes out. Obviously, I trained a lot this fall. Been doing a lot of kilometers on my bike. Been up early in the morning to ride with Oslo Dawn Patrol, and I've been out late in the evening to get some night riding in. And in general, just been trying to do as many vertical meters as possible when I was out riding. And I think that really paid off because, spoiler alert, I absolutely smashed it, I feel, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Friday, on the day, I was home and just preparing the route, preparing the bike, and a bit nervous. And then went down to Urolør and Canyon Mountain Cyclery a couple hours before we headed out. And I got Andrew to go over my bike. I changed my bar tape and lubed the chain and just went over the bike in general. Yeah, got the right tire pressures and stuff like that. I met up with Andreas and Thomas the night before. I never met Thomas before, but Andreas I've been riding with for the past 4 editions, so we knew each other quite well and we knew our strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, that was no problem. But yeah, Thomas, that was like the first time I met him the night before, so didn't know how well he was riding and how strong he was or how much he's been riding. But yeah, he was a nice guy, and yeah, it's always cool to meet new people regardless. So we decided to ride together then during the night, and I had set the route. The checkpoints this year it's usually quite long north, and then it's east, west and slightly south. That meant that the direction we chose was that we wanted to do the checkpoints that was closest to home first, which meant we would go north last this year. And the reason for that was we figured it would be mentally easier to do 3 quick ones, and then on the last one we could head north and not be tempted to go home, because then we've already done 3. So it's basically a mental thing how you decide to go about picking up the checkpoints than a physical, because it is the same for everybody if you choose to do checkpoint 1 or checkpoint 4 first. And 1 hour before start we had a riders meeting. We got the pentagram stamp in our forehead, and at 7 o'clock on the first green traffic light we set off into the darkness. Andreas, Thomas and me, we headed towards our first checkpoint, which was Gyri Hill. And I went there earlier this fall when I did the 7 summits, so I knew what was coming, and I figured that's why I also wanted to do this checkpoint first, because that's probably one of the hardest climbs during the night, or so I thought, but that's what at least I had imagined. So we decided to go for Gyri Hill first, and it was pretty much, yeah, slightly upwards on gravel for maybe 20-25 k's. It was a lot of uphill. But it wasn't steep or anything, it was just like, I don't know, 2-3% gradient maybe, just creeping up. And then the last 2 or 3 kilometers to the summit of Gyri Hill was 9-10%, maybe 11% average. So that's a pretty steep climb, and I knew it was a good way to start with, because that would really test my legs and it would give me an indication of how my body was feeling and how my legs were feeling. And the truth of the matter is that my legs were pretty good. I felt super good going up to Gyri Hill, and that was really nice, because it gave me confidence that I could probably finish this year without too much of suffering. First checkpoint in the box. This is a proper good test for what's to come, and if I pass this one this good, then I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be a good night. But don't want to jinx anything, but like I said, feel real good, so stoked. And we came up there, found the first checkpoint, super nice view with all the lights below us. Everybody was feeling good at this point. I don't think anybody was struggling. but I could tell from early on that I was probably the strongest one in the group, because I was riding on what I felt was a sufficient enough heart rate that I wouldn't blow up. And Thomas, he asked if he could slow down a few times because he was on his threshold. So that was kind of like an indication that, okay, I obviously feel pretty good today and maybe I'm stronger than the other ones, but it's kind of hard to tell. But we carried on towards the next one, which was a small lake on the opposite side of Markagram, all the way to the east. I think it was around 40 k's or something. And then we had to go through like a hiker bike trail. Yeah, we had a small stop at the Chicken Cabin, but yeah, I was still feeling good, no problems. Came to that lake. I had done the recon on that checkpoint earlier in the week, but I couldn't figure out where the checkpoint were supposed to be. But it turned out it was on this half island out on that lake, so it was kind of difficult to get there. And we didn't know exactly if the trail went out there, but it ended up us going through a swamp basically to get to the half island. So at this point then our feet were pretty much soaked. So that was kind of a bummer, but at least we found the checkpoint after searching for maybe half an hour. And then went back on our bikes towards the third checkpoint. So things were going pretty smoothly, but at this point we've been doing around 100 k's, maybe 110 k's when we came to the second checkpoint and going towards the third one. There was also some hiker bike sections, and at this point I could see that Andreas and Thomas, they needed a couple of breaks here and there. They were on and off with their clothes, sort of struggling a little bit, whilst I, again, don't want to blow my own horn here, but I just have to say that I felt really good, and I was just like filming, taking photos, and also just, I could see the struggling at times, so I tried to just like keep the spirit up. But we came to the third checkpoint in the end after then, 150 k's probably. And remember, this is now in the middle of the night. We're probably talking 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So everything up until this point is quite okay. But it's, when the clock ticks, 1, 2 or 2 in the middle of the night. And this is where it's the most easiest to scratch. This is when, the bad thoughts come in and you're struggling, and we are, it's all almost more than halfway left. This is where you really have to kind of work with your head and just maintain focus and just keep it up. And that's like depending on how you're feeling, of course, because if you are physically tired, then of course you're also mentally tired and it's more difficult to stay focused. But we managed to get to the third one, like I said, picked up the checkpoint quite easily, which were like a steep climb up. But I also done a recon on that checkpoint, so I knew that the climb wasn't much of a big deal. It was just long, maybe 5-6% gradient, and for 4 or 5 kilometers. So it was just maintaining an easy pace, no big deal. Picked up checkpoint, and then we decided, okay, let's head north. But then again, we have to go all the way down from the third checkpoint to kind of like to Sørkedalen, down to Sørkedalen. This is like super low point, so that meant there would be a lot of climbing back up in the forest again. At this point I talked to Andreas and he started to struggle, and he was cold. I mean, I was cold as well, everybody was cold, but our feet were soaked, which didn't really help. And but I just tried to maintain a good pace for myself and make sure everybody followed along. But Thomas and I were definitely a bit stronger at this time. We came to this cross section after around 170, 180 k's, and at this point we were going to descend back down to the main road before we were going to ride that for a while. And then it was quite a lot of climbing back up to the last checkpoint. But before we descended, the guys were taking a break, and this was like maybe the third break in a short amount of time. And I wasn't getting impatient at this point, but I was like, it was getting cold, and I was just like, okay, can we just maybe get going? And after they were done changing, instead of jumping on their bike, they started to walk with their bikes along the gravel road. And that's when I figured, okay, these guys, they are really getting tired at this point. But I just said, okay guys, we just gotta get down from here and we gotta keep going. So jumped on our bikes. And it was super foggy the whole night, like really moist and foggy in the forest. So Andreas and Thomas, they were riding with glasses and they were fogging up a lot on the descent. So I was always a little bit ahead because they had to tap the brakes a lot to clear up the fog in their glasses. And yeah, then getting down to the highway or the main road, they were also a little bit behind, and they were super cold at this point. Super cold, they told me. And I was just cold as well, but I just said like, okay, we just gotta keep going. There's nowhere to warm ourselves at this point. We have to keep moving, otherwise it's not gonna be any better. It's super foggy here, and it's super cold, so yeah, and it's been a long night, but not too comfortable right now. But I'll pull through somehow. We started climbing back up again after a short amount of time on the Payne Road along a small lake. Went up past the suburban area into the forest again onto like a hike and bike trail. And that's when I was like, okay, now I'm quite warm again. Now let's push for the last checkpoint. It's like 7-8 kilometers away from here. And then Thomas decided that he had to take number 2. He had to go for a shit basically. And that's kind of like, this was now 12 hours in. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, honestly, guys, I can't do this anymore. I'm cold, I have to keep moving. Let's go. Or I didn't say let's go, I actually said, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go for this last checkpoint. You could meet me up there, or I'll see you later at a gas station close by. Maybe I'm selfish, maybe I just think about myself, but I've been riding with Andreas and Thomas all night. I've been feeling really strong, stronger than them probably, and that's fine. But there was a time there for an hour ago, but that my patience kind of were a bit thin because they were having so many breaks all the time, changing clothes, eating, and then in the end there he decided to take a shit in the middle of the woods. And that's when, like, you know what, I've been riding for 12 hours, I'm cold, I'm wet, I kind of want to get back home before, you know, dinner. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm gonna think about myself and I'm gonna go ahead to Nypal. Andreas, that is. So I feel a bit bad, but at the same time, this is the last checkpoint. They know the way. That's just how it's gotta be, I'm afraid. I kind of feel bad for this still, even though Andreas said it's okay, then, you know, at least that's the decision I took and I have to stand by it. So I decided to ride by myself towards the last checkpoint. I had to look for it for a good while because it wasn't easy to find. I had to go into the woods and look under a couple of trees, and I couldn't really understand where it was. I mean, they said on the riders meeting, like in detail where it was supposed to be, but it's kind of hard to remember after riding for 12 hours. But I found it, super happy, super stoked. And then that meant I only had 50 k's back down to the cafe, which really gave me some boost. And obviously, once it gets light, you know, after the last checkpoint, it started to get quite light. And that's when you get a lot of new energy after riding in the dark for, you know, 12 hours. And then you see the sunrise, or at this time it wasn't sunrise, but it started to become day again, and you know, you definitely get some newfound energy at this point. And yeah, started riding towards the cafe again, and then I got a message from Andreas that he and Thomas had scratched, that they stopped at a grocery store close to the last checkpoint, bought beers and cigarettes, and took the train home. I felt a little bit bad at this point because in hindsight I figured if I had left them, then I could maybe manage to keep the spirit up for a little while longer and just get them to the last checkpoint so that we can finish together. Because like I said, I think I was the strongest one in the group, and if I had like really pushed on towards the last checkpoint with those other guys and said like, yeah, we're gonna do this, don't give up, and it's no point turning around now, then yeah, we could all finish together. But okay, that's how it went. They took the train and I made it back to the cafe then. After it wasn't easy to do those last climbs back back either, I'll tell you that much. It was some proper brutal climbs to get back, but I might be on my way home, but if you thought that the climbing was done, then you're wrong. It's not done, far from it. Still got some climbing to do, but we're getting there, we're getting there. But I made it in the end, 17 hours, and I met my sister, my mom, and my niece Maud outside.
Grattis, Andreas!
Tusen takk!
Du så flink!
Nummer 5, Andreas.
And they greeted me, which was super nice, and yeah, just super stoked when I came back because I had like super legs. My body felt good, my head felt good. I wasn't struggling very much at any point except like a small amount of time where I was a bit cold, but other than that I was just super happy, and I found out that I was finisher number 4 out of 13, and also half had scratch, so I think we were only 7 finishers in the end. So even though, you know, the 3 others had come in 1 to 2 hours before me, then I was just stoked that I had such a good feeling and such a sick night on the bike. So then Andrew got me some coffee and some food, and then I hang out at Rouleur a little bit, talked to Alex, one of the organizers, and yeah, went home, had some sleep, went to the after party, talked a little bit about the night, and then that was it. Definitely happy about the way it went in the end, and that all the training that I did paid off, because you never know how your body's going to react to such a ride, how you're going to handle the dark, and how the group dynamic is going to be and such. So yeah, super stoked and looking forward to do it over again next year, and do more of this. I mean, like bikepacking races or a brevet is something I really enjoy. So gonna focus on skiing now, but when the spring comes, I think I got something cool lined up, so we'll see how that's gonna turn out. So that's it. That's Markagram 2024. A pretty epic way to end the bike season, if you ask me. And I thought that would be the end of it, but it turns out it might be not, because I'm actually gonna celebrate by going to the Canary Islands on Thursday to do a long weekend of riding, just to get a proper send-off for the bike this season. So I'll do some videos for that, and then I'll get the Markagram documentary up and going, and then we're gonna shift over completely to skiing. So stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you really soon. Peace.